tell us who you are.
My name is Paddy Cosgrave, and I'm organising F.ounders, which is taking place in Dublin right now.
So you're the force behind this event that's being called the Geeks, the Davos for Geeks.
I guess so, yeah. There's a whole lot of other great guys behind me who've been part of a few other things that I've done that I've dragged back into this project, asked them politely to leave their jobs on some occasions, and they've very kindly done so and joined me.
I think, people are amazed at what you've done here. Pulled together an incredible event that's sort of the level of, some of our tech events in Silicon Valley, and you're doing it with a team of how many?
Up until 2 months ago, it was just me on my emails. I kind of religiously did stuff between 10 and 12 at night, every night, because that was a good time for people in Silicon Valley. And then earlier in the day, I'd do calls into Europe. And then eventually, about 2 months out, I realized that I should definitely get somebody else involved. So that was one of my good friends, David Kelly, who's an accountant and a lawyer rolled into one. So he's a very sensible person. So he immediately told me that I would definitely need another person. So then I roped in a guy called Dara Hickey, who's a phenomenal kind of communications guy, and he's handled all the press and the communications.
He's been emailing me today.
Great as well, and he's looked after all our speakers as well. So there was a kind of a core of 3 that became 4 about 3 weeks out, became 5 about 2 weeks out, and then 6 maybe a week out.
So how many people are here?
I think there's at any one time there's about 150. There's probably a churn, so there's over 170 in total, and they're drawn from all over the world, from Asia, India, Australia, all across Europe and North America.
So is your hope that they'll go back to their respective countries and say Ireland is emerging as a place of innovation and
Well, I mean that would be great, but that wasn't the intention. I think the intention was it started out as there are ecosystems that exist all over the world, and if you're in an ecosystem, you're buzzing and bouncing off every other founder in that ecosystem. You're meeting for coffees, you're going for late drinks, you're having house parties, and you're just constantly talking, and it's a great experience. And everybody benefits in that ecosystem. It makes it stronger when people connect. But connecting the dots between all those ecosystems doesn't happen very often. And I guess what F.ounders does is bring some people from Stockholm and some people from Paris into the same room as some people from Silicon Valley. And occasionally they see each other at some very, very big conferences. But they don't always get the opportunity at those conferences to kind of sit down one-to-one and share a meal or go on a pub crawl. Or experience all of those things that you get to experience when you're inside one particular ecosystem.
Well, and also do it the Irish way, which I think has been so fun for so many of us coming in, right?
I think it's been a blur for most people. They remember arriving, but and they'll remember leaving, but in between they're pretty sure they had a great time.
I think that's the beauty. I mean, we have networking events or networking sessions that are part of conferences, but they finish at 10. You guys start at 10 p.m. and keep going, so...
Yeah, if we're lucky, we started. Yeah. I think this morning in the hotel that everybody's staying at 7 a.m. they got back from their night out, and they had a champagne and McDonald's breakfast. A group of about 25 of them. So yeah.
Okay, well I'm glad I hit the hay at 4 a.m. I thought I was doing good. So what? You're in the fourth one, right? So
Yeah, well, it actually was. I came out of a startup that I founded in very early 2009, and in October we had a kind of, I'd call it a distressed acquisition, pretty distressed sale. We managed to sell something that would have been very difficult to sell to. There weren't people banging at the door to buy it anyway, and I ended up in a situation where I was wondering, what should I do next? And I'd had a conversation with my little sister, who was in a student society in a university in Ireland, and she kind of told me that she just got elected over the summer to be part of this student society, and the internet was very big now, which I was very proud that my little 19-year-old sister had realized that, and kind of almost, I think when you're 19, you really believe you can do absolutely anything, especially if you 200 or 300 members of a student society that you're now a member of, or you're on the organizing committee. And she said, I think we should get some of the biggest people involved in the internet to come and speak to our members. And at first I thought that was kind of a ludicrous idea, that could never happen. And then just a light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, wait a minute, maybe these guys would come and speak to students, and they'd also speak to the wider Irish tech community. And so that started off a series of events starting about 10 months ago, where Jimmy Wales from Wikipedia, Tim Draper, a very kind of iconic, all singing, all dancing investor from Silicon Valley came and they spoke. And then in February I made it a little bit bigger. We had a few extra speakers. Craig Newmark from Craigslist came, and Matt Mullenweg from WordPress came and spoke to the Irish tech community.
He's here this time as well.
And Matt's back this time. And when Matt came in February and Craig, I rang up 25 founders from around Europe, from different cities, from Stockholm, Berlin, Hamburg and Paris, London, and said, hey, we're all in our own little ecosystems where we all hang around with each other, but we don't get to meet each other very often in a kind of low-key and intimate setting and have fun, connect and learn from each other. And I just asked them to all get in a plane 2 weeks later and come to Dublin. Blind faith almost that they'd arrive and everything would be great. And they got on planes and they arrived and we all stayed in the same hotel and we just had an unbelievable time. And that's what started, I think, this event. That seeded it. And 8 months later we're back in Dublin. All those guys are back again, and they've brought their extended network. I haven't brought everybody together.
It's invitation only, correct?
It's invitation only, yeah.
And it's largely, predominantly focused around founders and visionaries and entrepreneurs who have started something.
Yeah, it's probably 90% founders, ranging from YouTube to Twitter to Skype, which is a great example of a European tech company. And there's also some fantastic and interesting investors as well. And into the mix, I think one of the things that I noticed in certain 2 or 3 of the other founders that were here in February, it was after the event we met with the chief of staff to the European Commissioner responsible for all things digital, or essentially everything tech related across all of Europe. And we sat down with him for coffee, and the conversation opened very simply, how are you? And he was like, oh, very stressed right now. We're thinking we'll have to draft a letter to Facebook. We're like, okay, so Europe is drafting a letter to Facebook. Why are you drafting a letter to Facebook? It's like, the privacy issues, we're very concerned, we're deeply concerned. And we're like, okay. Have you ever met anybody from Facebook? Have you ever talked to the guys? Do you understand why they might be making these changes? He's like, oh, me? I never get to meet. I've never been to a tech conference. I call my children on Skype back home from where I'm from Brussels every night. But I've never met anybody behind any of these tech companies. And it really kind of struck us as a group of founders that were building technology companies that are incredibly disruptive, and quite often they run up against governments that have no awareness or understanding of not just the technologies but the people behind them. So we've made an effort to approach some really key people across what are very traditional organizations and individuals that have a lot of influence in the world. And government, and ask them to attend, simply to meet and interact with this group. So we've had the chief economist of the World Bank, who's out with us for dinner last night. He lost his jacket. Somebody seemed to take it, so that's going to affect Ireland's bond yields, bond spreads over the next week or so until we give him back his jacket. We also had the international chairman of Goldman Sachs, who was the founding chairman of the World Trade Organization. This morning we heard from the former UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, who's the first female president of Ireland, and she's also a member of the Elders, which was an organization set up by Nelson Mandela, which is kind of a very small group of some incredibly influential world leaders that sit and discuss kind of pressing issues and matters facing the world. And I think that's a very important thing that's sometimes overlooked, that there's a world outside of the world that we're in, and that world sometimes has an impact and puts restraints on our ability to innovate and to change. And the more we interact, hopefully the more understanding there is between both those worlds.
So do you think that will affect your content moving forward in terms of, bridging the gap more between government, and so it's not just focused on social media and Web 2.0, but it's also focused on the impact that can have in larger organizations?
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll definitely do it again. The international chairman of Goldman Sachs, I wasn't too sure whether it was a kind of a joke or not, but he said that he really didn't check his emails. He preferred to have them printed out. But after having met all these people, he felt an obligation that he was going to start really engaging with technology. And I think that's just a tiny positive anecdote. And
the mayor tweets, right?
and I'm sure he'll tweet a lot more. And I think that's very, very positive. So the more people in that space that we can engage, I think it makes for a better world, a world where people can innovate faster, and the restraints put on them by governments that are unaware of ultimately who the people are behind these technologies, what they're doing, and what the technologies can do.
Last question.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more about F.ounders and also follow them on Twitter and you on Twitter?
Sure. So I'm just Paddy Cosgrave on Twitter, and
no pressure to
yeah.
increase the tweet stream now.
No, yeah, no pressure at all. And then I think I've asked a wonderful guy, Garrod O'Rourke, who's been with me on so many things, who's a great designer, to put together a website that we'll reveal tonight, which is F.ounders.com. Surprisingly, F.ounders or F.ounders.com was already gone. Yeah, shocking. So it's F.ounders.com. That will go live this week and provide people with an opportunity just to see some of the things that happened in Dublin over the last 3 days.
Terrific. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.